Hi love, so welcome back to MJ Pro YouTube channel. In today's tutorial, I'm going to be teaching you how to cut and sew this beautiful 6 pieces skirt you see here directly on your fabric without a pattern. It is so detailed, beginner friendly and very easy to understand. So if you are interested, please keep watching. And if today is your first time on the channel, please click on the subscribe button and also on the notification bell so you get notified whenever I post a new video. And also don't forget to drop a like and a comment. For this tutorial, I'll be using this Ankara fabric you see here. So the first thing to determine before cutting your 6 pieces skirt is how full you want the skirt to be. Because the fuller the skirt, the more fabric you'll be needing. And the 6 pieces skirt is made up of 6 panels. On each panel, the lower part has a flame. So for this tutorial, the flame I'll be using for the lower part of my 6 pieces skirt is 16 inch on each panel. So the next I'm going to go ahead to do now is to start cutting my fabric. So here I have my fabric and I'll be cutting the center panel of the front of the 6 pieces skirt first, and I'll be doing that on fold. So first I'm going to go ahead to fold my fabric into two like this. So when folding, you're going to be folding using whatever you have decided to use for your flip. So I'm using 16 inch for each flip. I went ahead to divide the 16 inch by 2 because I'm cutting the center panel on fold. So what I have here is 8 plus 1 inch for sewing allowance. So here I have 9 inch. I have 8 inch plus 1 inch for sewing allowance. So that is what I use in folding my fabric. The next I'm going to go ahead to do now is to draw a straight horizontal line at the top of my fabric like you see me doing in the video. This line here is going to be serving as the waistline. Next, I'm going to go ahead to insert the vertical measurement, which is the waist to the hip depth, then the waist to 2 inch above the knee. I'll go ahead to mark it. Next, I'm going to go ahead to insert the full length of the skirt plus a sewing allowance of 1 inch. After marking this point, I'll go ahead to draw straight horizontal line like you see me doing in the video. After drawing the horizontal lines, next I'm going to go ahead to do now is to insert half of my nipple to nipple measurement on the waistline. So my nipple to nipple is 7.5 divided by 2 is 3.75. I'm going to go ahead to mark the 3.75 and I'll be adding 0.5 inch sewing allowance. So I'll mark 4.25 at this point. After marking this on the waistline, I'm going to move over to the nail line and I'm going to go ahead to minus 0.5 inch from my nipple to nipple measurement. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead to mark 3.25 plus 0.5 inch sewing allowance. Next, I'm going to go ahead to connect the waist to the nail using a straight line like this. After doing this, the next thing I'm going to go ahead to do is to connect the nail to the hem of the skirt. So this is what the center front of the skirt is going to look like. The next I'm going to go ahead to do now is to cut out this panel. So this is what the center panel of the front is going to look like. So if you want the down to be fuller, you can add more inches on the down of the skirt. The next I'm going to go ahead to do now is to cut the center back of the skirt using the center front that I just cut out. So now I'm going to go ahead to fold my fabric again, but this time around I'm going to be adding a zipper allowance of 1.5 inch on the center back of the skirt. So I'm going to go ahead to fold it like you see me doing in the video. After folding it, I'm going to go ahead to place the center front on it, making sure that I leave a zipper allowance of 1.5 inch on the center of the back, after which I'm going to go ahead to cut it out. So I'll not be inserting any measurement on this part again because I've already done all the measurements on the front block of the skirt. The only difference between the center back and the center front is the zipper allowance on it. So I'm going to go ahead to place the center front on my fabric this way, then I'll go ahead to cut out following what the shape I already have on the center front of the skirt. So here we have the center front and the center back of the skirt. The next I'm going to go ahead to do now is to cut the side panel of the skirt, and in doing that I'm going to be making use of the center front of the skirt again to cut the side panel of the 6-piece skirt. For the side panel, I'm going to go ahead to open up my fabric like this. After opening up the fabric like this, the next thing I'm going to go ahead to do is to place the center front of the skirt on it this way. When placing it, you're going to be placing it on fold. You will not be opening up the center front of the skirt. You go ahead to place it like this and arrange it. After doing that, the next thing you're going to go ahead to do is to trace this part of the skirt on your fabric using your chalk and your ruler like you see me doing in the video. So after tracing the line, this is what you are going to be having after tracing the line. The next you are going to go ahead to do now is to place the center front on the line like you see me doing in the video. You're going to be placing it, making sure that it follows the line you just drew out like this. Then you go ahead to arrange it. So now we are going to be assuming that we are cutting our skirt on fold and we are cutting the front block of the skirt now. So the next you are going to go ahead to do now is to extend your waistline, your hip depth line, and also the knee line. So I'm going to go ahead to quickly do that. So after drawing the lines, the next thing you're going to go ahead to do is to insert your waist measurement on the waistline. So you'll be inserting your waist divided by 4 plus 2.5 inch sewing allowance. You're going to be using 1 inch to join the center panel to the side. Then the remaining 1.5 inch is going to serve as your seam allowance. Next, I'll move over to the hip line and I'm going to go ahead to insert my hip divided by 4 plus 2.5 inch sewing allowance also for the hip line. After doing this, I'll move over to the knee line of the skirt. So for the knee line of the skirt, you can go ahead to measure what you have on your waistline and insert it on the knee line, or you go ahead to minus 6 inch from your hip circumference measurement. So my hip is 38 minus 6 is 32. I'm going to go ahead to divide the 32 by 4, and after dividing it, what I got was 8 inch. I'm going to go ahead to mark the 8 inch plus 2.5 inch sewing allowance. So if you want it to be fitted on that part, you can go ahead to minus 8 inch depending on how fitted you want the nail part of the skirt to be. After marking it, I'm going to go ahead to connect the waist to the hip depth and also to the nail using the curved part of my ruler like this. After connecting the side, the next I'm going to go ahead to do now is to move over to the hem of the skirt. So remember I said I'll be using 16 inch as the flare of the skirt. So I'm going to go ahead to measure the 16 inch at the hem of the skirt like you see me doing in the video. So whatever you're using as your flare, you're going to go ahead to insert it on the hem plus a sewing allowance of 2.5 inch. So I'm going to go ahead to mark that at the hem of the skirt like you see me doing in the video. After marking it, I'll connect the nail to the hem using a straight line with my ruler like this. Then I'll go ahead to cut it out. So if you're a beginner and you don't want to really confuse yourself, what you'll be doing at this point is to fold your fabric into 4 and cut the 4 side panels together, because you'll be needing 2 side panels for the front and 2 for the back. So to avoid mistake, you can go ahead to cut it at the same time, but I like cutting mine separately. That is why I made it like this. But if you are not too familiar with it, you can go ahead to fold your fabric into 4 using the amount of layer you want to use. Then you go ahead to do this and cut it at once. So I'm going to go ahead to cut the side panel like you see me doing in the video. After cutting the side panel, I'm going to go ahead to cut the remaining 3 side panel. Then I'll come back to show you what to do next. So this is what the front panel of the skirt is going to look like. As you can see, I have the side and the center panel, and I went ahead to cut the same thing for the back of the skirt. I also went ahead to cut out the lining for the skirt. I'll be adding a full lining to the skirt, and this is what we are going to be having. The next thing I'm going to go ahead to do now is to join the center panel to the side panel like this. So I'm going to go ahead to place the center panel on the side panel like you see me doing in the video. I'm going to be joining lining to lining and fabric to fabric. I'm going to go ahead to join the center panel to the side panel for the front, and also I'll be doing the same thing for the back. I will join the fabric together, and I'll also do the same for the lining. I'm going to go over to quickly do that, then I'll come back to show you what to do next. So I went ahead to join the center panel of the skirt to the side panel, and this is what I have. I also went ahead to open up the seam, and I gave it a good press, and this is what it looks like. I also did the same thing for the back of the skirt. So here I have the back of the skirt. I also went ahead to join the center to the side panel, and I gave it a good press, and this is what the back of the skirt looked like. I also did the same thing for my lining. So whatever you do on your fabric, you'll be doing the same thing on your lining. Next I'm going to go ahead to do now is to trim the hem of the skirt. So I'm going to go ahead to fold the skirt like this, then I'll go ahead to trim every sharp edge on the skirt. I'll be doing this for both the front and the back of the skirt, and also for the lining. So here I have my lining. After trimming the edge of the lining, I'm going to go ahead to reduce my lining by 0.5 inch because I don't want my fabric and my lining to be at the same point. So I want my fabric to overlap a little bit on the inner part of the skirt. That is why I'm doing this. So I'm going to go ahead to reduce 0.5 inch from the lining, and I'll be doing the same thing for the lining of the back of the skirt also. So after trimming the lining, the next I'm going to go ahead to do now is to join the lining to my main fabric. So I'm going to go ahead to place the lining on the main fabric like this, making sure that the good face of my lining is facing the good face of my fabric. Next, I'm going to go ahead to arrange it like you see me doing in the video. After which, I'll go on my sewing machine to start stitching. And while stitching, I'll start stitching from the hem. After stitching the hem, I'll go ahead to close up the sides of the skirt, and I'm doing the same thing for the back panel of the skirt also. So I'm going to go on my sewing machine to close up the hem, after which I'll go ahead to close up the sides of the skirt. After doing that, I'll come back to show you what to do next. So I'm going ahead to attach the lining to the skirt, and this is what it looks like. So after joining the lining to the skirt, I went ahead to turn it over to the good face, and I gave it a good press, and this is what we have. I also went ahead to do the same thing for the back panel of the skirt, and this is what the back panel of the skirt is going to look like after I attach the lining to it. As you can see, my fabric overlapped inside a little, so this is why I reduced the lining by 0.5 inch, because I don't want my fabric and my lining to be at the same point. Next you are going to go ahead to do now is to close the center part of the skirt. Then you go ahead to fix your zipper. After fixing your zipper, you're going to go ahead to close up the side of the skirt using whatever sewing allowance you added to the skirt while drafting. So for me, I'll not be doing all that because I am making a 6 pieces gown. The next thing I'm going to go ahead to do now is to join the upper bodies of the gown I'm making to the skirt. So I'm going to go ahead to join this bustier I've already made to the 6 pieces skirt. I have a detailed video on how to make this Princess Dad bustier up on the channel. You can go ahead to check it out. So I'm going to go ahead to finish up this gown, then I'll come back to show you what it looks like. This is what the skirt looks like after I'm done making it. As you can see, it's looking so beautiful and it came out very nice. So if this video was helpful to you, please don't forget to subscribe if you are yet to. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in my next tutorial.